Hello. Welcome everyone. Welcome to another video. You are watching Daily Dose of Tech, a playlist where I come and teach for around 30 to 60 minutes. The main goal of this series is to come up daily and just improve our content, improve our learning experience, and come up with the best possible way to explain a topic. This week and from the past few days, I have been covering Azure Bicep, which is kind of a CI, kind of a infrastructure, not kind of, but it's an infrastructure as a code deployment uh, language maintained and published by Microsoft itself. And today is ninth day of covering this topic. In this today's video, I'll be explaining you the importance and I'll be explaining you the two keywords, which is called existing and dependency on. So these two keywords are very important, but I'm covering this today because I do not have that much time and I'll be teaching for around 30 to 40 minutes. The main goal of this topic is that you should understand clearly when to use existing and when to use dependency on. And let's dive into the topic. Alright, before starting, I just would like to if you would like to, follow me or like to see all this content, you can follow me on YouTube. Obviously I'm not active on Instagram, but the profile is in the description, so you can check out there. If you are interested to correct me professionally, you can follow me on LinkedIn. Obviously I'm available on X as well. Feel free to ask anything. GitHub is for all the codes and examples, and the very most important, I am building the biggest tech community Discord server. So if you are interested to find fellow people from who have UI UX designer, who are from development, who are doing anything, if you're interested to work with fellow developers to learn and grow together, join our Discord server. The link will be in the description. All right, so I won't gonna take much time. We started with this from Bicep. The timer is already started, so it's around 27 minutes I have started because I have to do some other work. But yeah, I explained to you what is Bicep, then I explained to you how are the different ways to upload deploy your resources to Bicep. Then what are the benefits of Bicep? Then what are the different scope where you have to deploy your resources, where you can deploy, and what are the limitations, which type of service cannot be deployed. We all learned about this. I provided you Azure provider and types, what are they, and then I showed you how to deploy Bicep, and we created our first Bicep file. We deployed it using the CLI command, and I explained you the difference between the resource name and the deployment name. And then we worked on the parameter file, and then I explained you the Bicep keywords. What are the different Bicep keywords? Then we also learned about the Bicep data types, difference between import and using, then user defined types, and today's topic is existing resources. This video is just to come up with a content that I need to explain in the right order to make you understand completely about Azure Bicep. So a dedicated playlist is gonna come soon in future, which will be called existing the ultimate guide to Azure Bicep, and these all content will be improved because I am getting a lot of feedback that how in which order I should explain things. But yes, so starting with existing resources. So the thing starts here like there may be a situation in Azure where in your environment, in specific environment, you already have an existing resource, but there are some properties of that existing resource that you would like to refer in some another resource. For example, you have your log analytics workspace already present. So let's say this is a log analytic workspace, LAW, right? And you are deploying a new resource called app service, which is used for running your application codes and whatever those things, right? For app service, you want to enable your logs, and you have already log analytic workspace present. So in that case, if you would like to refer that all the logs should go to the same log analytic workspace, we are gonna write, and this is kind of the best practice in which you should do. So you are gonna write an you are gonna use an existing keyword, and that existing keyword will will bring all the properties if you provide that the name of the log analytic workspace. So whatever the log analytic workspace, for example, test law 01. So if you provide this and you use the existing keyword, it's gonna bring all the properties, and then later on in the below codes, if you are now kind of deploying Azure app service, that app service is itself you can use in the properties where it comes, log analytic workspace. There you can refer this log analytic workspace.id, because in Azure, if you want to refer anything to a resource which you are deploying in the later part of the file, you can use the ID, and this is the very important way. It's to use important way and kind of a best practice to write in this way. I'll just take you to the example itself. So I have here the existing resource, right? So if you see in this example, they are using this keyword. So it starts with the resource itself, and then whatever the type of that resource is going to, you have to provide that API and a name. So I'll show you everything at the end, that how I professionally write a bicep file, which is kind of a scalable solutions, because in organization where we are using hundreds of servers and you want to deploy, automate everything, you have to write the solution in a scalable manner. I'll provide you what I am doing and all the best examples in the GitHub itself, so you can just refer it, and feel free to replicate in your organization and suggest. And if you want to improve on top of it, you are free to do it, but I'll show you. So basically what it does, that you have created an existing thing. This existing resource is gonna, all it needs is the name of the resource and the scope where it's actually being deployed. Once it's provided, you will get all the properties of that. Now, if there is another situation where your resource group, that specific already existing resource, is deployed in a different resource group where you are going to deploy your new resource, so there you have to provide the resource group name, and by scoping this thing, it's gonna fetch all the properties from a different resource group where your resource is residing. By default, it takes where your actual bicep is deploying, it takes that resource group as the location of the resource. But if your location is existing in a different resource, you can provide that here. But ideally, every time you just provide it here, even if the resource is the same as what you're deploying, you should write the same resource group here. You should not make it default, because then it will you will think about like how what should I write it or not, should I skip it this time, you go in those things, so it's not necessary. So it was a very short topic where we can use, and it's a powerful one. We do not have, so it sometimes what happens, that you have if you're doing it a loosely way, for example, one resource bicep file for everything, and you improved the properties and everything in your one of the areas, but you haven't updated the other side. But if you're using the existing, where you naturally don't need to deploy every time, you bring all the latest properties. This is going to be more clear when I'll be explaining you how it looks, when I'll be having the important an example, right? Now moving on, I explained you what's an existing keyword do. The similar sort of properties is dependency. It comes in a similar range, but what it does is that, for example, you have a list of things that you by default have to perform for a specific resource. For example, when you are creating a function app needs a storage account to work. So by default, when you are creating a function app, you need a storage account, and if you are doing it more securely, then you have to enable the private endpoint of that. You have to enable the for example, encryption key. You have to do all these things. So to build the function app, that actual app, you need all these things, and this is not something you can do parallelly. You have to execute one, and once that is ready, it can be used and utilized by the later on resources. And in that same specific thing, specific use case, we use the dependency. So basically, there are implicit dependency. This is I'm running for the reading for the first time, that there is an implicit dependency and explicit. But by default, dependency. Okay, so an implicit dependency created when one resource declaration refers another resource in the same deployment. Okay, so for example, here they say that you do not have to write specifically, but if you are example DNS zone and that you are using it here, it's gonna create an implicit dependency. And when there is a nested resources, then the nested resource is a dependency itself. But nesting resource is kind of complicated, because sometimes what happens is that a lot of new smaller sub resources you are deploying and you cannot add it in your same bicep file. So we're gonna tackle that in the future videos. But yeah, going forward, it's there is an explicit dependency where you are properly defining where exactly you have to put the dependency, what exactly dependency that you would like to mention there. So DNS zone, so when you are deploying, for example, DNS zones, you need this DNS zone to be dependent on. And you can, and there is a, if you are having Azure Bicep extension installed, you can verify how your dependency looks in a visual way. So taking another example, if I just show you child resources in Bicep, and okay, so this is pretty common. Let me just go again and explain you from using one of the code. Let me just open the Visual Studio Code. All right, so here in this example, for example, here and the dependency is kind of a keyword used only in the Bicep file. So for example, now if you are if you are deploying with a proper security Azure Bicep, then Azure resources. So to deploy a security, you need a virtual network. Virtual network, I mean, Microsoft recommends to have a routing table defined for each subnet. So for each subnet, you have to define a route table, and the route table is kind of a dependency, because although you can create it separately, but when you want to attach that route table to a specific subnet, you have to provide it name. And when you are providing it name, Azure expect that the name should exist already. So either you can deploy that dependency, create that resource ahead and just provide the name, or you can create in the same file with mentioning that, okay, let's that route table be created first, and then we will be attaching that to the Azure subnets. So yeah, that was pretty much about Azure dependency, and you enable that feature by dependency on. And if you have to write existing, then you write it by existing. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Tomorrow is a weekend. I'll probably be coming up with proper source code, where I'll be explaining all the things that I have explained so far, and I hope that will be a more precise and refined content. And yeah, that was all that I wanted to share with you and explain it to you guys. It was a quite short one. I just explained for 15 minutes, and yeah, I have to plan it better. So see you soon.